Hey there, my name is Alex, I am the Silver Mont, and welcome to Dark Souls Q&A Unlucky 13, or Lucky 13, or just 13 depending on who you ask. Today we'll be talking about the Jailers of Irithyll in Dark Souls 3, and as usual, if you have any suggestions for future topics, leave them in the comments, or on my Twitter, or wherever else you prefer, although snail mail, probably not the best idea. So, the Jailers. What do we know about them? I'll tell you right now that they gave me conniptions in my first playthrough, but once I was told that you can sick the creature on them, I had a lot less trouble. Lore-wise, however, we know a little about them to start off with. The Jailers were among the few survivors inhabiting the profaned capital, later serving under Pontiff Sullivan. Perhaps the screams emanating from the cells helped them forget their old home. So there you have it, they were once of the profaned capital, and although we don't know exactly how much time has passed, it's entirely possible that they are extremely old. We know that Sullivan discovered the profaned flame, and this seems to have been his primary motivation or inspiration. It would appear he discovered the remnants of the civilization too. The Jailers serve Sullivan now, after all. You'll no doubt remember there are handmade enemies in the profaned capital, who bear a strong resemblance to the Jailers, only they're garbed in white, not black. It is said these women took pleasure in wounding others. Yep, the profaned capital is an odd place, but considering the fact we encountered them in the profaned capital, does that mean they refused Sullivan's offer? Was it even an offer, or did he forcibly enslave the Jailers to carry out his will? Did the handmaids opt instead to remain in the profaned capital, watching over what exactly? Treasures? Ruins? Yorm? Are they all female, whereas the Jailers are all male? The masks seem to be very close to one another, yet the Jailer's mask remarks, "Mask worn by Jailers of Irithyll Dungeon. Nobleman delighted in his plump features." Nobleman certainly doesn't mean all the Jailers are male, but it might offer up something to think about. Irithyll, for example, is strongly associated with Gwyndolin, a feminine icon along with the moon. It's not beyond the realm of possibility that the males and females of the profaned capital reacted differently when Sullivan arrived. Of course, these are the survivors, the remnants of the profaned capital. What was left? Why did they survive? Are they not human? Maybe because the profaned flame targeted humans alone, if I remember correctly. But there's nothing much in-game to suggest anything to that effect either, so let's move on. By all accounts, the enemies are vindictive, the handmaidens enjoy harming others, and the Jailers seem thrilled by their sick jokes, such as the keys that lead nowhere but to open windows with cliff-like drops outside. And what about their soldering iron? Branding iron used by the Jailers prowling Irithyll Dungeon. Press its searing tip against foes to inflict fire damage, and temporarily block Estus healing. Aside from the fact that brands would typically use fire to begin with, fire is the perfect tool to utilize against the prisoners to subjugate them. Undead and lords alike are weak to fire in Dark Souls. Dragons and to some extent demons are typically weak to lightning, whereas both dragons and demons are strong against fire. Makes sense for dragons as they are dragons, and demons too. They were born of the Chaos Flame. Gwyn, Nito, your standard undead, all are weak to fire. But fire hasn't ever been known to block Estus healing now, has it? One of the very few ways we've ever known to block Estus would be Lloyd's Talisman, Undead Hunter Charm in Dark Souls 3. It's very hard to know how this actually works, as the description offers little clues. From the use of the item, we can see that smashing the talisman or charm releases some form of gas or vapour or mist, which renders the undead unable to drink Estus. But is that having an effect on the actual undead, or is it the Estus? For example, is it freezing the Estus, or is it doing something to the undead? The animations would imply that it's the former, as the undead tries to drink, but is unable to. The pale colour makes me think of ash, or indeed something so cold that it freezes the Estus, which is supposed to be liquid fire after all, and it would also explain why it doesn't last forever, as eventually, the Estus melts, and you can drink it again. But it could also be something like extremely powerful smelling salts, or who knows? Maybe it's just magical mist. What do you think? But the soldering iron is something different, clearly. Remember the Dark Souls 1 intro? The undead are branded. I wonder if that was similar to what's going on here. Do magical soldering irons used to brand others play a strong role in Dark Souls? Obviously not too strong, as this would be the first we've ever heard of them. Despite visiting several jail-like areas throughout the games, the Undead Asylum, the Lost Bastille, and of course Irithyll Dungeon. Perhaps it is merely a device created by Sullivan, or the Profaned Capital, used to punish undead. Indeed, perhaps the soldering iron channels the power of the Profaned Flame, and that is why it blocks Estus. The Profaned Flame was fire born of the sky, which makes me think of meteors or some such, and it is said to have incinerated naught but human flesh. That would corroborate with the soldering iron blocking Estus, an undead favourite. We also know there's a very strong connection between the Profaned Flame and the Abyss, judging from the fact that the blacksmith senses the dark, the Abyss in the Profaned Coal. Incidentally, the Profaned Coal is a flame preserved in an icy skull. How sinister. Remember the spell Pursuers? Well, humanity always seems to seek out more humanity, wherever raging emotions might stir. Why, it's almost as if the Profaned Flame were some strange abyss meteor mega pursuer or some such, and that would probably be quite terrifying if one day a giant form of pursuers came out of the sky and annihilated your city. That might explain why the jailers are, well, arseholes. But that is my thinking. The soldering iron is able to block Estus' recovery because of some connection it holds with the Profaned Flame. The Lloyd's Talisman must employ some other form of magic, I think. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments, and until next time, you take care.